This girl, at 8 years old, she was so painfully shy that she couldn't bring herself to look strangers in the eyes. At 13, she left her family behind, packed a single suitcase, and moved to Los Angeles with nothing but a dream and a father who believed in her. At 18, someone famous publicly humiliated her on national television in front of millions of people. And at 24, she became the youngest person in the history of American television to receive its highest honor. Can you guess who she is? Comment right now. I'm counting down. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Clue number 1. She grew up in Oakland, California. And if you know Oakland, you know that's not Beverly Hills. No swimming pool in the backyard. No Hollywood agents knocking on the front door. Her father and mother were both school teachers. Two ordinary teachers with an ordinary daughter and an extraordinary dream. But here's what makes this interesting. Her mother wasn't just a teacher. She also managed the house of a Shakespeare theater in Orinda, California. Which means from the time she was very small, this little girl grew up inside a theater. Not watching from the audience seats, but running around backstage, helping her mother arrange props. Sitting in the wings watching actors rehearse night after night. And during those same years, she started dancing. Not ballet, not jazz. She trained in hula dancing at the Academy of Hawaiian Arts in Oakland and in hip-hop street dance with a crew called Future Shock Oakland. Nobody, absolutely nobody, in that neighborhood imagined that a little girl dancing hula and hip-hop on the streets of Oakland would one day stand on the red carpet at the Oscars. Have you guessed yet? Clue number 2. And this is the part almost nobody talks about. When she started to dream seriously about Hollywood, her father made a decision that not every parent could make. He took on multiple jobs at the same time, not because the family was struggling to survive, but because he needed money to take his daughter to auditions in Los Angeles. And to save every dollar he could, he didn't buy plane tickets. He drove. Oakland to Los Angeles is 700 miles, over 1,100 kilometers. Round trip, over 2,000 kilometers per journey. Not once, not twice, dozens of times. Picture that scene for a moment. A father and a little girl sitting in a car at 3 o'clock in the morning, driving through the dark to make a 9 o'clock audition in LA. The father says very little. The daughter watches the lights on the highway blur past the window. Both of them know that if she doesn't get chosen today, they will drive 1,100 kilometers home, and then do it all over again, and then again, and then again. She later admitted something honest about herself from that time. She said, "I wouldn't try anything. I always had this fear of failing and not doing so well." A girl with a deep fear of failure, making that drive over and over again. Are you getting closer? Clue number 3. In 2010, when she was 13 years old, the family made a decision. She would move to Los Angeles. Just her and her father. No friends. No normal school. No normal teenage years. Just a small apartment in downtown LA, back-to-back auditions, in a city that didn't know her name yet. She spoke about this years later with the kind of honesty that stopped people in their tracks. She said, "I was 13 and it was just me and my dad in an apartment in downtown LA. I remember getting my period and him not knowing what to do. It was a weird, transitional, lonely phase." Think about what that means. While kids her age were stressing about exams and having their first crushes and arguing with their mothers about curfew, she was sitting in audition rooms trying to convince adults she had never met that she deserved a chance. She never went to a regular high school. She was homeschooled, learning between rehearsals, between rejections, between long drives on the freeway. Years later, already famous, she quietly admitted, "I wish I had gone to school. I still think about what I missed." And here's your final clue. She made one more decision around that time. She dropped her last name entirely. Inspired by Cher. Inspired by Prince. Legends who needed only one name for the whole world to recognize them. She kept only her given name. One word. Enough for the world to remember. And she was right. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Zendaya. Born Zendaya Marie Stormer Coleman. A name that means to give thanks in the Shona language of Africa. And when you understand her journey, you understand why that name fits perfectly The little hula dancer from Oakland was cast in Disney Channel's Shake It Up in 2010 at just 13 years old. Her first major role. After dozens of rejections. After hundreds of hours of night drives with her father. After hundreds of audition rooms where she sat with her heart pounding and her hands slightly trembling because the fear of failure never fully left her. But Disney was only the beginning. And that beginning was about to be tested in a way she had never prepared for. February 2015. Zendaya, 18 years old, walked the Oscars red carpet in an all-white gown. Her hair was worn in natural locks, long and beautiful. She was proud of that hair. It was part of her culture, her identity, part of who she was. And then, on a popular fashion commentary show, a well-known host looked at a photo of Zendaya and said on live television, in front of millions of viewers, that Zendaya's hair probably smelled like patchouli oil and weed. About an 18-year-old girl, on the most important night of her young career. Within hours, the internet exploded. Everyone was watching to see how she would respond. Would she cry? Would she stay silent? Would she post something angry and regret it? Zendaya was 18 years old, and she sat down and she wrote. Not a short tweet, not a 15-second story, a long, measured, deeply calm Instagram post. She wrote that her locks came from her father, her brother, her best friend, and her young cousins. She wrote that saying her hair smelled like marijuana was not just an insult to her, but an insult to millions of people who wear their hair that way as part of their culture and their history. And she ended with a single sentence. She wrote, I don't usually feel the need to respond to negative things, but certain remarks cannot go unchecked. The host issued a public apology the very next day. But more importantly, that night, an 18-year-old girl showed all of Hollywood exactly who she was. Not a polite Disney actress who smiled and stayed quiet. Someone who knew herself, knew what she stood for, and was not afraid to say it out loud. Hollywood began to see her differently from that night forward. In 2019, Zendaya was offered the role of Rue Bennett in HBO's Euphoria. A 17-year-old girl battling drug addiction, depression, and slowly destroying herself from the inside. As far from Disney as it was possible to go. Many people in the industry quietly asked the question, could the Disney girl actually pull this off? She didn't just accept the role. She co-produced the entire show. At 22 years old. And to prepare for Rue, she spent months meeting and listening to real people who had lived through addiction. Not to imitate them, but to understand what they actually felt. During the filming of one particularly difficult scene, she later recalled, I was scared to face it. I didn't want to see Rue like that, but my body didn't know it was acting. My heart didn't know it was pretending. And when the scene ended, I needed time to find my way back out of her. September 2020. The Emmy Awards. Zendaya watched from home because the pandemic had emptied every ceremony of its audience. When her name was called, she said she could not believe it. She said, I still can't believe it myself. It's pretty crazy. She was 24 years old, the youngest winner in the history of the Emmy Award for Outstanding Lead Actress in a Drama Series, defeating Jennifer Aniston, Olivia Colman, Sandra Oh, Laura Linney, names that the little girl from Oakland had once only dreamed of being mentioned alongside. In 2022, she won again, becoming the first Black woman to win that Emmy twice, becoming the youngest person ever to win 2 Emmys in the leading acting categories in history. From the little girl too shy to look strangers in the eyes, to the woman that all of Hollywood looks up to. And here is what I want you to take from this story. Zendaya did not succeed because she was fearless. She succeeded in spite of her fear, in spite of the fear of failure, in spite of the loneliness at 13, in spite of being publicly humiliated at 18, in spite of the pressure of being a Black woman in a Hollywood that was not yet fully ready for her. She once said something that I think is the most honest sentence ever spoken about her own life. She said, the thing I struggle with most is being so afraid of making a mistake, because I know I'm not given the same room to make mistakes as others. That is not a complaint. That is a truth spoken by someone who understood exactly where she stood and chose to keep going anyway, every single day, regardless of the weight. Did you guess right? Drop a check mark in the comments if you had her from the beginning, or an X if she surprised you. Now I want to leave you with one question. If Zendaya's father hadn't driven 1,100 kilometers every single week for a daughter who was afraid of failing, would the world have ever known her name? Leave your answer below. I read every single one. And if you want to see the next story, subscribe right now and turn on notifications. Because the next video is about a Hollywood star who was rejected over 1,500 times before landing their first role. 1,500 times. See you there.